I just wondering, I mean, you had a couple of guys that decided to leave early for the NFL, but overall, you had a lot of guys, coming back. JT Jordan, Devontae decided to come back for another year. Did that kind of surprise you at all? And just how big were the decisions for next year's squad?
I don't get real heavily involved and put emotions into those decisions because we do the best we can to educate those guys and give them information. And ultimately, each player and his family have to make those decisions. So I look at it as, it's an investment in them, and we spend a lot of money on getting the information, whether it's the services we get, talking to NFL teams, traveling to visit with parents. We invest a lot of time and energy into getting them good information to make a good decision. But it's up to each and every guy. And I'm not very critical of the decisions guys make. I don't think you actually know if you made the right decision or not, because there's probably not a wrong decision. It's more what suits the needs of others. Some guys have graduated and it's on to the next step. Other guys maybe are close to graduation, and I think it's time for them to make that leap. But we certainly support those guys. I'm looking forward to seeing those guys work out and train, and we're fired up about the guys that decided to return.
Kirby, I guess just as a sort of direct follow on that, we know about Devontae and Justin coming back for the extra year. Guys, I was wondering about Demetrius Robertson, Walter Grant, maybe even Julian Rochester. Do you know their plans?
Yeah, I know most of those guys' plans, and some of them are working out with us and some of them aren't. But to be honest with you, we're worried about the guys that are working, and I don't have to get into specifics about those guys. Some guys may not even made their minds up yet in terms of that, but most of them have. And it'll play out over the next several weeks in spring practice as it starts to come to fruition.
All right, let's go to Mike Griffith and then Chip Towers.
Yeah, Kirby. Just I guess the signing class, some of the ink's dry. Can you just address where the needs are at now? I heard in a Rivals interview a little earlier today you talked about the portal being more for addressing needs. Where are you guys at right now, and how do you manage the roster with these? Looks like a double freshman class now that the frozen eligibility this past season.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. I look at it. I just told Claude, this is not really a signing day Zoom, because our signing class was pretty much done in December, and I think that's the way it's moving forward to, especially with COVID. In terms of COVID, the class is done, so it's kind of anticlimactic to talk about the signing class, because I think that we've kind of been focused on them since they arrived. So many of them were here mid-year, and so many of them were able to practice with us or come and enroll in school and begin workouts with us. So I'm excited about those guys. And it was an interesting class because, sometimes the first time you saw some of the guys was when they were walking in for school or walking in for bowl practice, because you didn't get the official visit time with those guys. So I'm excited about those guys coming into work, and they're a really good academic group, and we thought it was a good class all in all.
Kirby, obviously, Will Muschamp's been spending a lot of time at the facility with you guys, and maybe visiting Jackson as well. Obviously he's relocated to this area. Is he going to join your staff in any kind of official capacity, or is he maybe helping out as a consultant, or what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, as of last week, we were able to get things completed with Will. He'll be joining our staff in a off the field role. We call it an analyst, and he's already made a lot of strides in terms of helping me, helping our staff. He'll be able to help coach the coaches, and he'll be working with the defensive side of the ball. But very, very valuable to have a guy that's been a head coach at two places in our conference. He knows the ins and outs of this conference. He'll be able to help our staff, our coaches, in a lot of ways. And I'm excited to be able to have him join us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, let's go to Mark Weiser and then Charles Odom.
Sorry, I had to unzoom there, Kirby. Wonder if you could kind of update us on maybe some postseason surgeries and maybe availability as far as for spring guys like N'Kobe Dean, Micah Morris, MJ Sherman. Anyone else you want to share?
Yeah, those guys had some postseason work done. Each one will be individually based on whether they're ready for spring, based on the recovery and the time it takes to recover. So I don't know if N'Kobe will be able to go through spring or not. He'll certainly be able to do a lot of things, but he may not be full contact. The guys that had labral repairs most of the time won't make it through spring in terms of contact. So you're talking about MJ, Micah, and N'Kobe, you're talking about labrals.
Okay, thank you.
To follow up on you making it official with Will Muschamp, did he express to you interest in eventually returning to an on-field role?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that anytime you're aspiring coach, you want to get on the field and get an opportunity to go coach on the grass. I know he's not through his coaching days. That's really important for him to be able to get out there and have the relationships and go develop a position group and coach. So I know that's important to him. And his family's been his focus here recently because I know he feels like he's moved his family all over the country. And this is an opportunity for him to give back to them and be with them and be able to watch his son play.
Let's go to Dean Legge and then Brandon Sudge.
Kirby, I apologize for going backwards on the recruiting question, but it was something I did want to ask. In this world of recruiting, how do you know when a young man is committed to y'all? And back in the day, it was usually phone call or you'd see stuff. Has it been different? How are y'all getting that communication from the prospects?
As far as verbal commitment?
That's right. I should have said that.
It's no different than it's ever been, right? They can text you, they can call you, they can Zoom. I mean, they didn't always do it in person. As a matter of fact, most of the commitments I've ever received were not face-to-face. Most of the commitments I ever received occurred after a kid came and visited. You know, he wanted to go home and sleep it off and spend time with his family and check in with his coach. And whenever he felt comfortable making a verbal commitment, they did it, you know, by calling you and letting you know, or maybe letting the position coach know, and then the position coach referred them to the head coach. But that really hasn't changed. I think that's what you're asking. The matter, how they go about committing has not really changed. The entire recruiting process has changed because we don't get much, really any face-to-face interaction.
Hey, Kirby, I guess I'll tie this back into the whole signing day thing, but since you guys have gotten all those early enrollees on campus, I don't know if you've been able to be around them much at all, but can you share if you've seen anything from them and what that process has been like with getting them on campus early and having as many of those guys as you did have them here already?
You mean, do you want me to create an unrealistic expectation for them? Is that what you want me to do? And I mean, I've got to be around them a little bit. Yeah, I've got to see them work out and lift in the weight room. But the guys we got to see practice briefly, I think we got maybe 3 or 4. We talked about this before. Maybe 3 or 4 practices in with those guys before we had to go to Atlanta for the bowl. So, no, I'm not ready to put any stamps on anybody or any unrealistic expectations on anybody, because I know that's what a lot of people want to talk about is those guys. And for me, unrealistic expectations is the biggest avenue to failure. And I don't want to place that burden on anyone. I want these guys to grow and learn and work hard, and they'll get a chance to perform out in the spring.
Let's go to Jake Rowe, and then we'll go to Zach Klein.
Kirby, you guys lost some significant pieces after last season in the defensive backfield, 3 cornerbacks, a couple nickel guys, and Tyreek Stevenson transferring. Kind of what are some, like maybe some of your preliminary plans about guys that you want to see get going at that position, some of your older guys, and where does the portal maybe factor into that, recruiting out of the portal and things like that?
Well, I think number one thing is secondary is a development position too, especially for us. When you look at it across the board, the number of players we've had play as freshmen have been few and far between when it comes to defensive backs. There's certainly been role players, but not many guys that just step in and go play. So it's a position we have to develop. We've got some guys we've been developing for a while that'll need to step up and play. We've also got some young players that we just signed, we just talked about, that'll have to grow quickly, and we'll get an opportunity to compete for positions. We've certainly got availability at that spot, and we've known that was coming for a long time because we had some talented players that we knew were going to have the ability to leave as juniors. So these young guys will begin to work. Some of the older guys that got to play in the bowl game more than normal, they're going to get a lot of opportunities, and we're going to try to develop these guys and get ready to play. I mean, the best help for that secondary will be the front four, getting some pressure and being able to rush. So that'll be just as important as anything else we do.
Apologies to everybody else, but I just wanted to also follow up with that. Jamal Adai, the hiring of him, how big of a factor was it that he has had experience basically dealing with so much turnover in the secondary, and what happened with him last year at West Virginia and the way he developed those cornerbacks and turned them into a really good pass defense?
I mean, to be honest with you, absolutely nothing. I mean, I didn't go and study and say, I had no idea until you guys wrote that. I based the decision on the fit, the person, the man, the research, the interview. I'm not really into, how many stars did he lose? What was their, passer rating? What was their defensive pass percentages? Because that's not, to be honest, it's not relevant because you're dealing with two different conferences that didn't cross over conferences. So for us, we based the decision on the fit. And I'm excited about Jamal because I think he's very talented. I think he's got a great personality. I think he's going to make a really good recruiter. I think he's a really good teacher, and getting to visit with him and since hiring him, getting to spend a lot of time with him, I'm excited about what he can do. But as far as what he inherited or had go or came in, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have any clue.
Kirby, I know you pride so much on hosting guys and showing what Athens has to offer when it comes to recruiting to other places. Have you been given any indication or hopeful that, come April, May, you'd be able to host guys on campus? And does any part of you, going back to you've been forced to handle this recruiting in a COVID world, do you feel more recharged because you weren't working 20 hours a day on the road that you have every other year leading up to this from a physical and just mental clarity standpoint?
Yeah, I would say that the travel aspect has taken that part out. I mean, I enjoy going to the high schools. I enjoy going to the basketball games. I enjoy promoting our game and our sport. I don't look at that as taxing because if you're not doing that, you're doing something else. I mean, it's not like it ever stops. I've probably been more involved with my family, my kids, my players, our team here with their activities after hours than normal, because I haven't been on the road at basketball games, in-home visits, and doing all those things that you would typically do in a January time period. But as far as us getting kids back on campus, that's up to the NCAA, and they pushed it back several times, and we'll find out shortly here if they push this date back that we currently have. But I'm looking forward to getting guys back because I want to find out more about them as men when they come to campus, get to know their family, have them get around our players so that you can feel comfortable about the guys you're bringing in.
Let's go to Augusta Stone with the red and black, and then we'll go to David Pascal.
Hey, Kirby, you mentioned this a bit earlier, but I kind of want to know if you can say who were some of the people that you hadn't met before they enrolled on campus, went to classes, and what have you heard that helped them, kind of get them here without that in-person interaction during the process?
Well, I met them all by Zoom, obviously.
Yes. I mean, in person.
Yeah, in person, a lot of them, we weren't able to get to see all these guys. I mean, looking down the list, they didn't get to come to games this year, so we didn't get to sit down and visit with several of them, but we're excited about them. And it's just different because the official visit, you feel like you get to know their families, so many things about them. We didn't get to do that. Now, as far as time on the phone and time on Zoom's a lot. What was the second part of your question? The adjustment to them coming?
Well, what do you think made them come? When you don't get to get that atmosphere, what convinced them, do you think?
Well, I think those same selling pieces. Number one, wonderful education, and we've got a really stellar class in terms of academics. So this class bought into the fact that they're going to one of the top 20 public institutions in the country. So that was a key ingredient. The fact that we've got an opportunity to be successful. I mean, they see the support. They see what our program's been able to do from a facility standpoint. So they want to be a part of that. They want to align themselves with that. And we had a lot more kids from our own state, you know, from our in-state kids that I know Georgia means a lot to them, and they watch Georgia growing up being successful, and they want to be part of that. So I think that was probably the number one factor, because they couldn't factor it on visits. They couldn't factor it on going to games. They had to do it on what they knew and understood.
Thank you.
Kirby, when you go back to your time as like when you were running backs coach, you remember that this day Claude used to have coffee and donuts for everybody, and how Buttsmere used to be absolutely packed. Like you said at the very top, it's basically become a non-existent day. Do you see that continuing? And what would you change about the recruiting schedule moving forward if you could?
Well, I don't see this changing. I see it only moving up more and more, because more and more kids want to go mid-year. They want to start their college education and get an opportunity to. And COVID only accelerated that, because they didn't have the opportunity to play spring sports in a lot of cases. So I don't foresee that changing. In terms of timing of things, it's tough for us, because you're making decisions blindly. You don't know who's coming back, who's not. And those decisions aren't made. And I think those decisions for guys are in the right timeline. But unfortunately, our early signing period prevents us from getting that information. So it's two different dates that aren't aligned. And it's really hard just to fix that. I mean, you'd say the way to fix it is push back signing date till after the junior declare date, but then you're right back to where we were before. And a lot of kids want to be able to early sign and take the pressure off of January and February. So you're not going to make everything happy or cohesive with either one.
All right, let's go to Connor Riley and then Roddy Nabulsi.
With more and more kids signing in December, has that sort of changed how you go ahead and start recruiting that next class, in this case, the 2022 recruiting class, in terms of putting more of an effort and emphasis on recruiting those guys, especially in the month of January?
I wouldn't say more. I would say it's always been that way, right? I mean, I've always seen January as a chance to jump ahead on those other guys. We just have a little more time now, because you're on less 2021 kids in January of 2021, because your class is pretty much done. So we've always put a big emphasis on that next class. That hasn't changed. It probably just seems to be that way. And I think those kids are probably making earlier decisions with the outlook that they may not get visits. They may not get an opportunity to go places and do things.
Kirby, do you have dates set for spring camp and G-Day? And do you have any G-Day plans? And also, can you give us your thoughts on Josh Brooks taking over as AD?
Yeah, April 17th is slated to be G-Day. We don't have exact times and whether television is going to be involved in that and what our attendance policies are going to be, but we do have the date, and that date would be April 17th, as well as our spring dates of our 15 practices. So that part's set. We're always flexible in our practice dates based on weather or things that may change, but the G-Day date is pretty solid for us there. Then as far as Josh Brooks, I'm excited to work with Josh. I've known Josh for a long time. He's worked really hard for this opportunity. I know he's excited. I'm excited about working with him, and his staff upstairs does a tremendous job. I think Greg did a great job leaving this situation in great shape, and he's got a really good senior support staff in which he works with, and I think he's surrounded himself with a lot of good people. So we're looking forward to working with all those guys.
And we got time for two more questions, and we'll just open it up. Anyone? Two more.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to touch on Javon Bullard as an early enrollee. Is he a guy, watching his film and stuff like that, he aligned at some safety some. Of course, he played corner, playmaker on both sides of the ball for Baldwin. Is he a guy that could fit in multiple roles maybe in his future at Georgia? Yeah,
we're excited about Javon, and he's a bright kid, great family, and looking forward to seeing him work, and certainly going to be some opportunities in the defensive backfield. And we're going to have to find out more about him to see exactly where he's going to start off, whether that's corner, safety, star, nickel, money, one of our different positions. But we're excited about the things he brings to the table.
Coach, are you expecting any signees today?
That's one of those that, to be honest with you, Chip, we may get one, we may not, and only time will tell. But there's several guys that we've been in communication with, and when it comes to that, that's something that happens when it happens, because we're not really allowed to comment on it.
What do you like in the Super Bowl?
You know what? I just want to stay close. I want a good game. I really want Miko to get an opportunity to get that second ring. Got a lot of friends, and Bruce and I have been friends for a long time, Arians, and excited to see those guys play at Tampa. But I'm not really pulling for either team. I am pulling for a good, exciting game, is what I always like to watch.